Alright, so while we're out here, I figured I'd give you guys a quick little show of how the hops are doing. If you listen to the podcast, we talked a few months ago about planting hops. So this is basically how mine are doing. The two on the left are one plant, and the two on the right are another plant. And the one on the left doesn't have quite as many things coming out yet. They're starting to kind of form here, you can see a little bit. Although I read that different species mature at slightly different rates, so I'm not too surprised about that. You can see this one here actually has quite a lot more on it. Lots of little cones everywhere. And I figured while we're out here, I'd just kind of show you guys how to determine sort of when your hops are actually ready. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can just kind of see. So there's a couple different ways. There's a couple different ways actually that you can determine if they're ready yet. The first one is just to look kind of at the tips of the cone leaves, and they'll kind of start to turn brown as the hops are ready. Another way you can tell is just if you kind of squish it between your fingers. If it stays kind of compressed, then it's not quite ready. It should kind of spring back. Although these are getting pretty close when I squish them, you can kind of see they sort of stay flattened, but they're almost there. And then the kind of a third way, although this one's a little bit less reliable, is you can actually just flick them, and if they come off, then they're generally kind of ready. Although that doesn't always work. If it's like a thicker stem or whatever, that might not be the best indication. But yeah, this one here will probably be ready to pick in I don't know, I'd say probably a few weeks. You can see we've got lots of fantastic cones everywhere. A little shaded there, but yeah, they're back there. We've got lots. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm probably gonna get, I don't know exactly how much I'll get out of all these plants, but the one on the left at least, it seems like I might get, I don't know, 4 or 5 ounces this year. And the one on the right probably less, but yes, that's how the hops are doing. Alright guys, so this week we're going to be talking about a different Canadian brewery. Last week we talked about Cameron's. So a pretty well-known Canadian brewery to a lot of Canadians is Sleeman. Sleeman's a company that's located in Guelph, Ontario. It's probably about 2 hours or so from Toronto, south of Toronto. Kind of actually more southwest, but so just give you a little bit of history of Sleeman, kind of what their deal is. So they were originally founded in 1834, but they were actually during Prohibition involved in some of the bootlegging across the border into Detroit, Michigan, and so they were actually shut down. Their liquor license was revoked at that time, so they were actually defunct for quite a while. The brewery was originally founded by John H. Sleiman, and then in 1988, his great-great-grandson, John H. Sleiman, reopened the brewery. So it's only been open for, what is that, like 25 years? Math is hard, you know how that is. But anyway, so pretty popular brewery in Canada. It was actually purchased in 2006 by Sapporo, which is a Japanese brewer. Not many Canadians I talk to actually realize that it's foreign owned now, but it seems like, relatively speaking, they've kind of let Sleeman kind of run the ship still. They're not like interfering too much, which I guess that's good. But and Sleeman actually between 88 and 06 has acquired quite a few breweries. They actually own Okanagan Spring Brewery, Upper Canada Brewing, Maritime Brewing, Shaftesbury Brewing, and they actually purchased a brewery I didn't know they owned, which is Unibrow, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a brewery in Quebec. It's actually pretty well respected. If you look at Beer Advocate, a lot of their beers are kind of on the top 100 and stuff, so pretty well respected. But as far as what Sleeman produces, they make quite a few. They have a cream ale, a draft, honey brown, lager, Silver Creek Lager, the original dark, which we're going to be talking about today, Rouse Light, Clear, and then they have a couple of these John Sleeman Presents. They got a porter and an India Pale Ale. I actually think that the dark and the cream ale are pretty good, considering this brewery's kind of in the gray area between craft and not craft, because they produce only 1 million barrels a year, which falls under the 6 million that we normally define. But they are foreign owned, and obviously that's not a microbrewery. So it's kind of in a weird gray area, but I still think some of their beers are pretty good, comparatively speaking to like any other macro. But and this is kind of some interesting things I didn't know about Sleeman. So they actually produce some beers for Pabst for the Canadian market. So evidently Pabst is not importing, they're having them produced domestically for Canada. So they make Old Milwaukee, Stroh, Schlitz, and PBR itself. It's kind of interesting, I didn't know that. And another interesting fact for you Canadians is that they own a 2% stake in the beer store. So they have an interest there. And then some other interesting things, so they distribute a lot of their beers in clear bottles, which, as many of you know, due to the compounds in the hops, if they're not stored correctly, if the bottles are exposed to light, you can actually get a lot of skunking and spoilage. Well, evidently Sleeman claims that they compensate for this by using hops that are actually processed to be less light sensitive. I don't know what exactly that would entail, if that's like a stabilizer that they're adding, or potentially it could be different varieties maybe are less susceptible. I'm not entirely sure. So let's talk about the beer we're doing today. So this is Sleeman Dark. This is actually one of my brother and dad's favorite beers. So I recently did a clone actually with my brother because he wants to get into brewing, and figured why not start with one of his favorites. I actually think the clone we came up with is actually superior to this. So I really would recommend you try the recipe that I'm going to give you at the end. But let's talk about this beer a little bit. So it's kind of a little bit darker, and I guess we'll just get into the taste and smell. Yeah, so it's kind of like a malty a little bit, kind of biscuity, not a lot of hops on the aroma. Yeah, just kind of, you get a malty, biscuity type thing. And then yeah, that kind of persists in the flavor as well. It's got a yeah, I keep saying malty and biscuity, but that's really kind of the main characteristics of this beer. It's got kind of a roasted character to it. It's good. It's not one of my favorites, but as far as something coming out of a big brewery, I think it's definitely acceptable, and it's not something I would say is necessarily inferior. I've had definitely craft beers worse than this. So let's talk about the clone recipe. So the clone recipe is actually pretty simple. What we've got is, when I brewed this with him, I did an extract version. So we did 6 pounds of Briess Golden Light DME. We did a pound of Caramel 60, half a pound of Caramel 80, and then we did 4 ounces of pale chocolate, just to give it a little color and flavor. Alternatively, if you don't want to do extract, if you want to do an all-grain version of this, just substitute the 6 pounds of Briess Golden Light DME for some 2-row. I'd say probably 9 pounds. Depends a little bit on your efficiency, but 9 pounds should probably give you right about the same post-boil gravity. So that should be about right. And then basically the hop schedule is pretty simple. It's an ounce of Willamette at 60, an ounce of Willamette at 15, and then half an ounce at 5, and chill it down, and then basically ferment with Nottingham, just a package of Nottingham. Nothing fancy for this one. And when we tasted it, it was really, really good. We were both kind of surprised, because we'd personally never tried to clone this one before, and we were surprised both how close we hit it on the first try, and actually that it was basically the same embodiment and spirit of the beer, but it was actually better. So I would definitely recommend trying this one out. But yeah, that's it. That's basically Sleeman. pretty much the biggest brewery in Canada behind Molson, Coors, and Labatt. So, you know, I don't normally endorse really big breweries like this, but at its roots, Sleeman was kind of a craft brewer. They've gotten, you know, purchased up, but it seems like they're still kind of maintaining the quality and everything, so, you know, you can't really scoff at that too much. But so that's Sleeman, guys, and that's pretty much it for this Homebrew Wednesday. So I'd like to wish you all a happy Homebrew Wednesday. Cheers. And coming up from us, I'll be doing a couple videos soon. I'm going to be doing a brewing video and then a kegging, how to keg video. So look forward to both of those. And if you guys are watching this and you don't know what MaltCast is, that's actually the sort of accompanying podcast that we do. It's done by myself and two of my friends, Jimmy and Josh. And you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher. It's basically everywhere podcasts are found. You can also hit it up directly at maltcast.com. So that's it for us, guys, or rather for me. Speaking in the third person today, I guess, who knows? But anyway, happy Homebrew Wednesday, cheers 17, and we'll see you guys next week.